Hello, everyone. Kimsey here, and I am so glad to be here. I skipped last week, kind of unintentionally. I had every intention of going live on Monday, which was Labor Day. And then we were out and about, and it kind of occurred to me too. I was like, I'm not going to be on my computer today. I'm going to be outside and celebrating having a Monday off. And so I kind of figured you all would be hopefully doing the same thing. And so for that reason, I skipped last week. I'm also a big proponent, especially when you specialize in working with anxiety. I'm a big proponent of taking breaks. Right? I read something that said, take breaks so you don't break. It's like, that's brilliant. So, with that said, I hope everybody got to enjoy a long 3-day weekend last weekend. And it feels really good to be back at it today. So last week, actually, as part of this Eating for Mental Wellness series, where each week for 6 weeks, I talk about I highlight a therapeutic diet that has been shown to be effective at improving mental and physical health. So far, I've talked about the OG of therapeutic diets, as I always call it, which is the paleo diet. I talked about low FODMAP, which we use for particularly for SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, but it can also be used for general IBS. Last week I was supposed to talk about the autoimmune paleo diet. Rather, what I'm going to do is I also wrote up a big, long blog and post about it, which is in my private Facebook group, Holistic Solutions for Mental Health and Wellness. I'll post it on my personal page too. That outlines everything. So I'm just going to divert you to there, and I'm going to pick up where we would have left off, which is today talking about a therapeutic diet that I think might be less familiar. It's more controversial. I felt like the AIP diet, a lot of people are really familiar with that. It's been around for a long time. And I use the autoimmune paleo diet, particularly when there's an autoimmune condition. I very rarely use it outside of that unless somebody is having an active autoimmune flare. Sometimes I'll do it if I suspect autoimmune, but it hasn't yet been diagnosed. Sometimes I'll do it when I suspect histamine issues, but more and more I've started just doing the low histamine diet for obvious reasons. So if you have an autoimmune condition, if you're kind of going through the ringer, getting a lot of different tests from doctors, but there's no definitive diagnosis, but you fit the symptoms of autoimmune, I would really encourage going back and looking at that AIP information, because the autoimmune paleo diet can be really, really effective for people that are having active autoimmune flares. And then how that helps the brain and our mood is because of the inflammation, right? Autoimmunity by definition means there's an excessive or out of control inflammatory response. And so that's what the AIP diet does, is it helps dampen that inflammation. We know that inflammation is probably the biggest driver of chronic generalized mental health issues like anxiety or depression or ADD, ADHD, fogginess. So that's how it helps with that. Plus, it also it's nutrient dense. So it provides a lot of vitamins and minerals and healthy fats and fibers and phytonutrients and all the things to help support your brain chemistry and neurochemicals. Okay, so go back to my private Facebook group, Holistic Solutions for Mental Health and Wellness. And that long blog will be in there. The post will be in there. You can also find the full blog article, which is even more expansive, on my website, which is progressivehealthandwellness.com. Okay, so today, though, as we continue this series, again, each week I'm highlighting a therapeutic diet that I have used in my practice and that has a lot of awareness and resources that you can find other places online that have been shown to support mental and physical health. So today I'm highlighting the carnivore diet. And the carnivore diet is it's kind of the new kid on the block, if you will, when it comes to therapeutic diets. It's definitely more controversial. It is on the extreme end of therapeutic diets, if you will. So we've got vegan on this end and we got carnivore on this end. And so I want to share, I think understandable for people to hear about the carnivore diet and just completely reject it and shy away. Be like, that seems really extreme. I can't imagine following that, especially for a long period of time. Can you ever eat these foods that aren't meat again? Why would I do something like that? What are the risks associated with it? Why would somebody do that? So I think that's very natural and a healthy response to have. I had that response when I first heard about it. I was like, why are we doing this? I was like, why is the world of nutrition so polarized? Why can't we just find a happy medium and emphasize whole foods and nutrient dense and minimally processed and eat what the earth provides, blah, blah, blah. And then I looked into the carnivore diet more, looked into what the evidence shows. And there were a couple clients I had a couple of clients come in that were already doing it, and it had made a really big difference in their health. And then I also had a couple of clients, and this is where I'll share how I typically approach and use the carnivore diet. But I had a couple of clients that they had histamine issues, mast cell activation, and they were really struggling to tolerate most foods. So with that preface, let's dive into the carnivore diet. So, as the name implies, the carnivore diet emphasizes animal products. So, nose to tail, which means pretty much any kind of animal. So, chicken, beef, lamb, venison, bison, seafood, fish, eggs. Some dairy products. The more hardcore promotes raw milk. Raw goat's milk specifically. Some people will incorporate, if they know they don't have a dairy sensitivity, they will incorporate just regular full fat organic grass-fed dairy products. For me and how I'm recommending it, it really depends on the person. 9 times out of 10 with the population that I work with, I'm pulling people off of dairy. So if they can handle and if they can find the raw goat's milk, then I'm down to give that a try. But most people aren't going to be able to find that. So I know in Colorado, you have to be part of a cow share. You can't just get it in a grocery store or a farmer's market. So it's kind of an ordeal. Anyways, with that said, so sometimes dairy can be allowed if there's not a known sensitivity. So what nose to tail means is organs included. So not just the muscle, but the muscle, fat, organs like liver, heart, spleen, kidney, marrow, like bone marrow or bone broth. Let's see, I think that covers it as far as the animal portion collagen, as far as the animal portion goes. Talked about the dairy piece. Eggs, of course, are included in that. And tallow. Beef tallow is a great cooking oil that would be used. Butter could also be used. And then for a long time, that was it. Then later evidence. So when I say evidence, the real pioneer spearheading the carnivore diet is Dr. Paul Saladino. The Carnivore MD is his brand. You can find him on Instagram and he has a website. And I think he wrote a book and he's all over the place, but he's really pioneered this movement, including the research around it. So when I say evidence supports, I say he supports. He later went on to support fruit could also be included in the carnivore diet. His whole reasoning behind I'll explain the carnivore piece and its overarching reasons in just a minute. But the fruit piece is that one of the arguments supporting the carnivore diet is that plants don't want to be eaten. So when you think about eating vegetables, which are plants, and herbs, which are plants, and other plant-based products, which by the way, on the carnivore diet, to be clear, all of that is gone. So vegetables are gone, grains are gone, nuts and seeds are gone. All of that is gone. Other fats like avocado, tomato, which are fruits, but in this particular instance, those would not be included. So anyways, all of that is gone. So it's just animal products, what comes from an animal. Nose to tail. Again, that's really important. because the organs are very nutrient dense. And that's how ancestrally we used to consume animals. So moving forward, the argument for that is that plants do not want to be eaten, right? They are a living organism. They want their species to propagate. They do not want to be eaten. So they have defense mechanisms ingrained into the plant in the forms of polyphenols and different phytonutrients and things that can have beneficial effects on our body, but also histamines and oxalates and salicylates and all these different foods that are components that can be actually pro-inflammatory, if not toxic or poisoning, depending on the species, when ingested. And then there's also like the argument for seeds, for example, is they're more difficult to digest. And the intention behind that is that they will then pass through an animal's digestive tract whole, be pooped out somewhere else, and can still grow and sprout and propagate the species of that plant. So again, kind of in a nutshell, the argument is that those protective qualities of the plant, chemicals of the plant that are supposed to protect the plant, can have harmful effects against humans and other animals. So they should be avoided. The argument promoting fruit is that the fruit is the part of the plant that it's willing to part with, right? The fruit is supposed to fall off the plant, like an apple falling from the tree, right? It's supposed to fall off the plant to go on to propagate the species. But because of that, it's the part that it's willing to part with. And so it is more, I'm not going to get into the science of this right now, but according to Dr. Saladino, it's less offensive to our health. It has less of those pro-inflammatory biochemicals. And the other piece is that if you're following the carnivore diet fully, especially if you're not doing dairy products, like most likely going to get into ketosis. And ketosis is great for short-term or interval time periods, but you're not supposed to be in ketosis for months on end. That starts to put a really big strain on the kidneys. So, and again, ancestrally speaking, if we were in ketosis for months, it's a starvation mechanism. So if we were in ketosis for months, like there's a problem, right? So the other argument for eating fruit, and he also talks about honey being okay for the same reason, is to get you out of ketosis. So again, more extreme. So what are the situations in which I've used this before? Now, Dr. Saladino will argue that pretty much everyone will benefit from the carnivore diet. I have seen him show evidence supporting how it helps everything from type 2 diabetes and heart disease because it's inherently low glycemic. So it will rapidly lower someone's insulin and fasting glucose, which would then also have a favorable impact on their arterial plaquing or atherosclerosis. In the case of heart disease, there's also the argument that grains and insulin surges, sugar absolutely contribute to that atherosclerosis. But I've also seen it be supported for autoimmune because it pulls out a lot of those plant chemicals. And then some of the areas where weight loss, of course, some of the areas where I see it most effective and where I have recommended it is what in mast cell activation syndrome and or significant histamine intolerance, really stubborn SIBO or irritable bowel disease, sometimes like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. But in particular, the two times that I've used it were someone that had mold and SIBO, and they were really reactive to a lot of different foods. And the carnivore diet takes out all of those FODMAP foods. So it really calmed down their digestive symptoms. And then the second one was somebody had mast cell activation and was reacting to what felt like every food out there. So it was like, let's just clear them all out then. And both of those people responded really well to it. I have also done modified versions where I'll have someone do carnivore for 2 out of 3 meals per day, but then the third meal, they're having a more balanced meal, getting in some starchy vegetables, some non-starchy vegetables, maybe some fruit, other healthy fats, things along those lines. Now, how does it support mental health? There's several different ways, but you're probably going to start feeling like I sound like a broken record because a lot of them are the same as some of these other nutrition plans, these therapeutic diets. And really, that's the whole purpose. That is the foundation of a therapeutic diet to support someone's mental health is we want to provide, and this is what carnivore does, nutrient dense. So meat and organs, I will say they get a bad rap, right? Most people, when they think of meat, they're thinking of like maybe some fat and protein, maybe some iron. But the reality is animal products and especially organ are really nutrient dense. We've got lots of different kinds of essential fatty acids and B vitamins and minerals like zinc and iron and selenium and copper. And so it's really nutrient dense. So we've got that going for us, right? And then if you get into organ foods like liver and heart, even has CoQ10 and spleen, and so there's really a lot of nutrients, especially in organs too. So it supports mental health, especially anxiety, through nutrient density, balancing blood sugar. It's inherently low glycemic. Even if you're eating 2 to 3 pieces of fruit per day, right? It's still going to be low glycemic, really going to minimize those blood sugar swings, the high blood sugar that inflames the brain and the low blood sugar that stresses it. So that's really big. The third is it will reduce inflammation. Going back to the concept that food, vegetables, plant-based foods do have components meant to protect the plant, therefore can be offensive to us, like the oxalates and histamines and salicylates and other things, alkaloids and lectins and nitrites, and there's different things in foods and plant-based foods. So all of that's removed, and what's left is the animal products. Now, especially in people that have compromised gut microbiomes, their microbiomes might interact with that meat and also turn it into pro-inflammatory compounds. We'll see things like TMAO, for example, or ammonia. So something to keep in mind. That's also a situation where I really promote easing into the carnivore diet and not just tomorrow starting to eat only meat, because your microbiome changes based on the food that you eat. So if you slowly start eating more meat and less vegetables, you're going to upregulate bacteria that can adequately digest that meat. Versus if you just jump into it, you're probably not going to have enough bacteria that can adequately digest that much meat. And so it may lead to like constipation or fullness or bloating. And there's more of a likelihood for that TMAO or ammonia or other toxic byproduct production. Let's see. So it also, we're going to the inflammation piece, right? It will help calm inflammation in the brain. And then it does also, depending on the types of overgrowths of bacteria, if there's like only, if there's yeast overgrowth, for example, or certain types of parasites, like the meat could starve it because a lot of other microbes love sugar just like we do. So those are different ways that it can support anxiety. And again, I will highlight, I work with a lot of people who are struggling with anxiety or panic attacks, and it's secondary to like histamine issues or chronic inflammation or mold or, something along gut issues for sure. And so that is also where the carnivore diet can really help calm those underlying things, which thereby improves the mood. Now, where are some situations? Are there situations where carnivore would be contraindicated? I do believe so. One would be if there's active H. pylori. If there's Helicobacter pylori in the stomach, the way that down regulates hydrochloric acid production. Hydrochloric acid is critical for protein digestion too low of stomach acid, that protein is just going to sit in your stomach like a brick and lead to fullness and maybe reflux and bloating, constipation. So what I would do is address the H. pylori first for like 1 to 3 months, then and kind of start easing someone into the carnivore. It doesn't mean they can't eat meat at all, right? So maybe we just have one meal that's carnivore. We're supplementing with some hydrochloric acid if possible, if they can tolerate it. And then once we feel like that's gone, then we'll start easing into carnivore more. Another situation to consider is gallbladder issues. So by definition, carnivore diet, even if you're eating lean meat, it's still going to be pretty high fat. So if there's active gallbladder issues, cholecystasis, gallstones, inflamed gallbladder, cholecystitis, I would probably not do this. You could try and see how they handle like one meal a day of carnivore and really supplement like bile salts, maybe some choline, other cholagogic foods to support the gallbladder contractions, TUDCA, things like that. But see how they tolerate it. Might be probably going to be too much fat. All right. So let's see. I'm trying to think. I think that covers it. The corresponding post that I'm going to post tomorrow will also go through a sample 3-day menu plan. You're not just eating like steak every day, like for 3 meals, right? You can get pretty creative with it. So that'll be included there too. Oh yeah. The next big question. Can you stop eating carnivore? If you start, can you stop? And if so, how? Yes. Totally up to you. Dr. Saladino, and I've had other people argue that it can be done for life. Some people have been doing it for years that I know. Others, they want to do it for a period of time, calm things down, maybe 6 months, a year, something like that. And then they want to get back to a more varied way of eating. Yes, you absolutely can. What I would say in that case is introduce food slowly back in. So just like we would slowly move into carnivore, we would slowly move out of carnivore. A lot of it having to do with the gut microbiome changes. So start introducing vegetables back in, then maybe some nuts and seeds, maybe some grains. All depends on the person of what would come back in, but ultimately you could do that. And then I do know some people where they follow carnivore like maybe 5 days a week, and then 2 days a week they don't, and they eat more freely. Or some people just want to get in back to what feels like a more balanced diet. And so they stop carnivore altogether and they just bring foods back in. So it is absolutely possible. All right, everyone, that's all I got for you for carnivore. Again, it is something that I have used, something I've recommended. It is not my go-to. I do use it in very particular instances. But in those instances, it can be really cathartic. All right. So if you are listening to this whole series, or if you follow me in general and you're struggling with anxiety or panic attacks, like you're normally an ambitious person, but your mental health and performance, maybe fogginess, you're feeling more run down, slowed down, if that's really starting to get to you, especially if you're noticing other symptoms like digestive or fatigue or insomnia, or you can't lose weight or skin issues, I invite you to schedule a free 15-minute consultation. It just gives us a chance to get to know each other better, talk more about some of the health challenges you're having and what you're looking for. And if it feels like a good fit for both of us, then we'll talk about what next steps look like. And if not, that's okay too. So you really got nothing to lose. But I'll drop the link so you can schedule that if you want to. And then stay tuned. Next week, we're going to get into low histamine. All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. This talk will be archived in my private group, Holistic Solutions for Mental Health and Wellness. Okay, thanks again. Bye.